Welcome back, class 10. Continuing with chapter 4, today we will learn about Swadeshi and boycott movement. The purpose of Swadeshi movement was the expansion of Indian industries. What does it mean? That means in Swadeshi movement, Indian industries, Indian cottage industries, Indian handlooms were encouraged. So you can basically say Swadeshi and boycott movement as complementary and supplementary to each other. Okay, boycotting means refusing to use or buy any English made products. Boycotting means boycotting of English cloth, salt, sugar. Renunciation means refusing to speak in English, refusing government posts and seats in legislative councils, social boycotts of those persons who purchased English products. So this is boycott. So if you boycott English products, the thing is you have to make your own product, or you have to manufacture your own products. So boycott and Swadeshi both are complementary and supplementary to each other. So what is written over here, Swadeshi and boycott movements were indeed complementary and supplementary to each other. The boycott of foreign goods required that the markets should be flowing with homemade or Swadeshi goods. The boycott movement thus tended to be openly and aggressively anti-British. It developed into a policy of non-cooperation with the British in every field. So what was the impact and significance of Swadeshi and boycott movement? The Swadeshi spirit moved all sections of society. All the sections of society were enthused, were motivated by Swadeshi movement. The cobblers, shoe menders, refused to mend the English shoes. The washermen refused to wash European garments. Persons selling or buying foreign goods were subjected to great humiliation. Even his relatives would boycott ceremonies such as wedding. Foreign cloth, salt and sugar placed in heaps were set on fire. The movement failed to destabilize the government, but it affected the life of the nation in various ways. How? Decline in the import of British goods. Stimulus means encouragement was given to Indian factories like the Bengal chemical factory started by Prafulla Chandra Roy, establishment of Tata Iron Steel Company. There was an urge for national education, and which resulted hundreds of national schools which were established in Calcutta. And there's an outburst of literary activity and writings in journals like Kesari, Maratha and Yugantar. What does it mean? It means that once the boycott movement started, it encouraged people to lean towards Swadeshi movement, and more people went towards Swadeshi movement. What it meant was it developed the Indian industry. Now we learn about the Surat split of 1907. Partition of Bengal led to the assertion of strong methods of Indian politics. Assertive nationalists came to believe that it was impossible to gain independence by using soft ways, polite ways. So there was an undercurrent of difference between the aggressive and the moderate. The Kolkata session in 1906, that means the session before the Surat session of 1907, of the Congress witnessed a sort of compromise between the leaders of the moderate and assertive. Dadabhai Naoroji was specially called from England by the leaders of the moderate to preside over because he was a very strong personality and no one went against him. It was a clever move because the purpose being to prevent Tilak from becoming the president of the Congress. Tilak was from the assertive. A split was feared by the great personality. Thus, the fear of the split was somehow protected. Now, the thing is, assertive nationalists in Surat the next year, assertive nationalists proposed the name of Lala Lajpat Rai as the president of the Surat session. The leaders believing in modern policies proposed the name of Rashbihari Ghosh. When the session at Surat began on December 26, 1907, there was an utter confusion. It ended in a mess or failure. At Surat session, the split means difference, between Congress became official. For about 9 years, assertive nationalists, Tilak and others kept out of the Congress. So it is known as the Surat split. There was a split in the Congress in 1907 where the assertive nationalists headed by Bal Gangadhar Tilak and other people came out of the Congress and they remained out of Congress for 9 years. Repressive measures of the government. Repressive means measures to pressurize the Indians. Measures to pressurize the Indians. Assertive nationalists suffered most for the cause of freedom. Obviously, they were very outspoken, they were assertive, they were not meek, mild like the other counterparts. Their other counterparts or the moderates. Since movement for boycott of British goods was gaining ground, means becoming important and prominent, the government launched a campaign of repression. Repression means suppressing the movement. We have already seen that Tilak was in prison. Under Seditious Meeting Act, the district magistrate would prohibit the holding of meetings. The Newspapers Act of 1908 was aimed at punishing those editors whose paper contained writing against the British rule. And school children were arrested for singing national songs. But such measures failed to arrest the nationalist movement. On the contrary, there grew revolutionary groups started growing in Bengal and in Punjab. Although the Britishers tried to suppress the movement, but the movement was not suppressed at all. Now, in the meantime, Bal Gangadhar Tilak was described as a British journalist by V. Shirol as the father of the Indian unrest. Very interesting name. Okay. What was the basic beliefs and objectives of the assertive group? Number one, they had no faith in the British sense of justice or fair play. The moderates believed they had huge faith in British justice and fair play. They highlighted the deceit. Deceit means misdoings, unfaithfulness, and treachery, or by means of which the British had conquered India. Number one. Number two, the 3 P's like pray, please, and petition, which was the moderates' view, was over now. Tilak said that political rights will have to be fought for. So their sturdy spirit provoked self-reliance and self-determination. And what was the ultimate objective? The ultimate objective of the assertive nationalists were nothing lower than Swaraj. Tilak over here, very famous saying. Tilak said that Swaraj is my birthright and I will have it. Nothing less than Swaraj. Their objective was to improve. I mean, what was the moderate's objective? Dominion status. That means independence in certain areas within the framework of the British rule. But that was not their policy. That was not the policy of the assertives. Anyway, now to attain a goal, there should be some ways, methods, programs. So, what were their methods and programs? Number one, revivalism. Revival means to bring back. They sought to build national movement. They means over here, remember, the assertive nationalists or the radicals. They sought to build national movement on basis of people's religious beliefs. So Tilak revived the Shivaji festival. Question comes. They presented Chandragupta, Vikramaditya, Rana Pratap, Shivaji as national heroes to bring back the memory. Second is Swadeshi. The Swadeshi idea was popularized by occasional bonfires in burning of foreign cloths and sugar. And when the flames rose, they shouted and they greeted by shouting Vande Mataram. Next was boycott movement. In fact, boycott meant far more than mere boycott of British goods. It also included boycott of government services, honors, titles. National education. Very, very important. During Swadeshi movement, many new national institutes were started. The contents of national movement was secular education, religious and moral education, political education, vocational and industrial education, and things like that. Religious education was aimed at building up a pupil's character, whereas political education meant carrying out one's civic and political responsibility. So this was basically to change the moral fabric of India, to be proud of what they are and to achieve what they should by fighting, not meekly by prayer, pleas and petition, which basically was done by the moderate activists. What was the achievement of the assertive? They lived a life given to utmost suffering and sacrifice. Through the writings, Tilak preached sturdy, means strong nationalism. Tilak wrote in Maratha and Kesari. Number two, self-reliance was the watchword. Atmanirvarta is now our watchword. Self-reliant. We should do our own work. We should not depend on others. The Swadeshi movement gave a stimulus, encouragement to Indian industries. Moreover, the Swadeshi and boycott campaign had developed into political weapons that crippled the British administration. Okay. Fourth, it broadened the social base, of the movement, extending it to peasants, workers, women, youth. All of them came into this whole movement. It was not restricted to the educated mass. It was a mass movement. Shakti, revival of Shakti. It drove many young men to the path of revolution, like Khudiram Bose, Madan Lal Dhingra, and Ram Prasad Bismil. Finally, they never bent to pressure of any kind. They could never be pressurized. The total objective, their objective was total independence or Purn Swaraj. And to achieve that, if you sit meekly, you cannot. You have to fight. Okay. So basically, this was the their achievement. Now, what was the difference between early nationalists and the assertive nationalists? Basic belief. You know what? The early nationalists believed in the goodness of the British. They had a faith in the British. But the assertives did not have any faith or goodness in the British. Main difference. Ultimate object. Ultimate object was Swaraj, absolute Swaraj by the assertives. But the moderates wanted dominion status. And again, their methods of struggle, the programs were different. The moderates prayed, gave petition. They said, please. They did not want. They did not go to any violent methods. Revolutionary methods. They were very meek, polite, educated. But the assertives were not like that. They wanted freedom, Purna Swaraj, by hook or by crook. So this is basically the major difference between the early nationalists, also known as the moderates, and the assertive nationalists, also known as the radical. We will continue with this chapter at the next class. Thank you for today.